Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting with M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and welcome also to day 19 of 25 days of tonalism. The study I've done today is based on a painting by Walter Clark, and it is called Connecticut Landscape. That may or may not actually be the title. Now, Walter Clark is one of these guys not that well known, certainly not as well known as a George Inness or even Charles Warren Eaton or someone like that. But digging around, actually apparently was a student of Inness, and this is one of the ways I was able to find some biographical information about him, which I will read to you right now. Noted tonalist Walter Clark was born in Brooklyn, New York, and educated as an engineer at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology before pursuing an artistic career. Shortly after graduation in 1869, his architectural training served as motivation to venture abroad and study the artful structures of Europe, Egypt, India, and China. He continued his education with enrollment at the National Academy of Design upon his return to New York. In 1876, he studied both sculpture and painting under Lemuel Everett Wilmarth and Jonathan Scott Harley, but was encouraged to turn his attention to landscape painting by George Inness, to whom Clark owned an adjacent studio in New York. Clark enjoyed a successful career and distinguished reputation, spending most of his time in East Hampton, Long Island, and Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania. He spent summers painting in the art colonies of Coscob, Old Lyme, Connecticut, Gloucester, Massachusetts, etc. He exhibited at the National Academy for nearly 4 decades, appropriately earning the Inness Gold Medal in 1902. He was featured in other important exhibitions as well, including shows, blah, 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 blah. So, hey, I just found out more about Walter Clark. I like this little painting he did, and there's a couple other little nice ones here I'm looking at. Now I will be providing some links to this article. This is from the cooleygallery.com, and I appreciate them. Some of these galleries are great sources of information about some of these artists that are less well known, and Walter Clark is somebody I knew almost nothing about. I think I just came across this image when I was probably doing research on the 100 Days of Tonalism about some artists. Now, this is very different from the sort of painting I normally do. You got a blue sky, it's quite bright, and it's not that tonalist, although I could certainly see the tonalist overtones in it, and for that reason I included it in the 25 Days of Tonalism. I like the composition of it. It's the kind of composition that attracts me. It's got a little pond or stream and some trees off to one side and a bit of space in the distance, and it's a nice looking painting. Anyway, like I said, there'll be some links on the corresponding blog post, and I think I'm going to talk on today's blog post about the concept of how you start is how you finish. And this is probably a topic that I've discussed before. To be honest, I'm not that big on digging into the blog and seeing if I've even talked about topics in the past, because, who cares, really? I don't care. It's not like I'm trying to... I do try not to repeat myself, but I don't worry too much about it, because there's... insights are always moving forward and being enhanced. That's one of the great things about really buckling down and painting every day, is that you make progress and you get better, and so many things go into that it's almost an endless amount of conversation and teaching that can be passed on there. So I don't worry about it. Hopefully you don't worry about it. Read the blog, watch videos. At the very least, you can just listen to me ramble as you watch me paint. So now, how you start. That's one of the reasons I'm going to talk about this, is because you guys are wondering how it's going in the studio, and last week I was talking about these paintings I was doing on the burnt umber. which was painted over the top of some failed paintings. And I have to say that I am so enchanted with the surface quality of these paintings that there's nothing like having a painting underneath a painting to get an amazing surface quality. And really, one of the ways I arrive at this is I've already textured my board, and I did a painting which was maybe not so great, but I sand that down, and then I painted this burn number over the top of that, and the resulting surface I'm getting once I do the new painting is just the type of museum surface that I've been attracted to for ever since I went to the De Young Museum and really discovered some of these tonalist painters, as well as the Hudson River guys. And on that trip I'd seen a few paintings that were done on panel, and I was attracted to that right away. I don't like the mechanical nature of canvas texture. You can, of course, you can coat your canvas over with a bunch of gesso and sand it down so it's very smooth, or you could texture it with gesso as well. But the other problem with the canvas is its flexible nature. It expands and contracts with changes in humidity and temperature, where far less than a wood panel would. And for that reason, I consider the wood panels to be infinitely superior, because I don't have to worry as much about things like cracking, which you can look at probably even some of good old Walter Clark's paintings here. Probably exhibit some form of cracking. I don't have the advantage of having a good zoom in, but you'd be amazed how many paintings have that cracks through the paint film. And the reason for that, of course, is that the paint film is a layer that sits on top of a bit of fabric, and they are expanding and contracting at different rates, and that's what causes the cracking. So now one of the big advantages to canvas is that you can work larger, and it's not as heavy and cumbersome. Also, you can take it off the stretcher bar, roll it up, etc. I don't recommend storing a painting rolled for any great length of time, but you can do it for the short term. It doesn't hurt them, And one of the beautiful things about oil paint is that it is quite flexible, but there are some pigments that are more flexible than others. Now, oh, by the way, if you hear a little yard work noise in the background, that's me. It's my wife doing the yard. So hopefully you're not hearing too much of it. In my experience, not much of it comes across in the recording anyway. This mic is fairly directional. But so yeah, I've done about 6 little paintings in the last week. Things are going very rapidly. Probably because I'm not doing any studies for these paintings. A lot of them are motifs that I visited in the past, and for that reason I just don't see a need to do a study. But so things are rolling along, ripping along. Also, these are all kind of earmarked for this museum show. At least that's the plan. So I've done a lot of small paintings this week, 8x10, which is the size I've abandoned a year ago because I'm getting pressure from my representative and from galleries to work larger. But I had these ugly paintings sitting around, and they were coated with burnt umber, and we're moving on. Now, next week I'll be getting into 11x11s and up, and probably going after about 4 or 5. And then the week after that, same thing again with even larger sizes, getting progressively larger as I go. And but again, I have to say, one other thing I've noticed with this burnt umber is that it is it's forcing me to slow down a bit on that first color pass, because I have to cover up all the dark color, and that's actually not a bad thing. I'm enjoying that. I'm still painting the way I paint, but not as much of this red peeking through. So that's what's going on right now. I've been working on the brochure for that museum show coming up, which, maybe I'll find some way to make that something that I can mail out to people that are interested. I don't know how many I'll be printing, but I'm trying to make it a really nice thing, as I want to use it as promotional material for other shows in the future and in other places and other countries. And It's all about getting the tonalism out there and getting my own name out there. And yeah, and by the way, if you're a tonalist painter and you're out there working, I love it when people send me email and I can see their work, and it makes me feel good to know other people are working in this genre, and that we're all together, kind of getting the word out. Also, if you like these videos, go ahead and click subscribe. That's awesome. It just lets me know people out there watching, which is cool. And oh, I can see we're getting close to the end here. So, hey, thanks for joining me today. It's Saturday, by the way, March 25th, 2017. We'll see you tomorrow, Sunday, with one of my paintings. Meanwhile, take good care and stay out of trouble.